When I was at this show about 3 years ago, I was walking through the trade show area, and a little girl comes up to me. She must have been maybe 8, 9 years old, and she was very excited, and she points at me and she says, at the time I was trying to grow a little bit of dirt under my nose there, and she looks at me and she says, "You remind me of my brother." And I said, "Well, that's nice. Why is that?" And she said, "He couldn't grow a mustache either." So I went to the hospital. And you have to understand, I was sort of in a bit of a blur at that moment because I wasn't thinking very clearly. And so I walked in, there's a triage nurse standing over here, and she's talking to a guy who has a fishing lure anchored in his buttocks. And I wasn't really clear what was going on. So as I'm walking over there, the guy behind him has a radio antenna sticking out of his shoulder about 4 or 5 inches. It's sticking out the back too. And so in my fog of that moment, I walk up to get in line, and I say to the guy with the radio antenna stuck out his shoulder, I said, "What are you here for?" Figured maybe he was here for a second opinion. And they described this era of misinformation as an environment of information bankruptcy. And then I looked to Digital Third Coast out of Chicago, and their survey showed that fully 2/3 of us feel burnt out by the news. And then the kicker. I was reading the Journal of Health Communication, and they have determined that people who consume the most news, far from being the most informed, have, in fact, the most skewed perceptions of reality. I am a journalist. How do we get to a place where the product that we create creates an environment of information bankruptcy, it burns people out, and creates this perception, skewed perception of reality? And I find this whole thing, as a journalist, it puts us in a really odd predicament right now, because if we don't consume the news, we're uninformed. But increasingly, if we do consume the news, we are misinformed. If you want to help your mental health, never trust just one source. Number 2, quit reading the comments. You've probably heard the old saying, opinions are like armpits, right? Everybody's got 2 of them, both of them stink. If you want to give your mental health a break, just quit reading it. And finally, turn it off. You deserve better. Your mental health deserves better. Your mind is like a ship. The ship doesn't sink because it's surrounded by water. The ship sinks because of the water that gets inside. Thanks, everybody. You've been a great audience.
Are there particular media sources that you would recommend, especially for parents who are trying to figure out what the news is and teach that to our kids?
It's a really big issue. Actually, it's not just for the kids, it's for all of us, actually, just to be able to recognize information that is unhealthy. Statistically, I can say one of your best bets, I'm not going to mention any particular branch, but subscription-based news is one of your best bets. And there's a logical reason for this, and that is what you're reading on the web, on Facebook, even a lot of the mass media, is ad-sponsored news, right? So the goal for them is just to get as many eyeballs as possible. Subscription-based news, what you pay for, the highest goal for the writer is you, the reader. Because if they write a lie or they give you bad information, then you're going to unsubscribe, and they don't want that. So if you want some accountability in the news, subscription models are a big part of it. The problem is subscription models are dying because we think everything on the internet is free.
Yeah.
And as you know, you've probably heard it before, nothing on the internet is free. You're either paying for the product you consume online, or you are the product being consumed, right? So it's not free.